Hey guys, it's Courtney, and I just wanted to show you a few steps for a flawless base of your face. So this is something that you can do every single time you do your makeup. The first thing that I'm going to do before I put my makeup on every single time is use a primer, and I use the Senegence Silk Pore and Wrinkle Minimizer. But without this, you can see every pore, every fine line, and this just really creates like a nice veil over your face that makes the texture of your skin really nice and even. And then you want to wait for it to completely dry before you move on to the next step. Okay, so it's been a couple minutes now, and the silk is nice and dry. I can't feel it anymore. So anywhere that I see redness, here and here, I have some here, maybe a little here, but I don't even know if I'll need concealer for that. I'm gonna go ahead and apply my green concealer. So the green concealer comes in these little tubes. I love this stuff. I've replaced these like once a year because they're so concentrated that you don't need a ton of it. So these are a great buy, especially if you deal with acne or redness of any kind. As you can see, I just put a little dot on my finger, and I do apply this with my finger almost every. I'm gonna start here just because it's the reddest. Putting a little bit there and here, and then I'm just kind of patting it, and I don't want it to be like very thick anywhere. You're supposed to put concealer on in layers, very thin layers, because you want it to dry completely. If it doesn't dry completely and you move on with your makeup, it will likely just rub right off and you'll lose any concealing that it was doing before. Mostly everything's covered except for, I'm gonna go over this again like I mentioned. It's actually already dry, which doesn't surprise me because I put a very thin layer on. So a little bit more. And this time I can't see that redness at all anymore. And again, just like I did for the silk and like I did for the first layer of the green concealer, I'm gonna let this sit and dry and do its thing. I'm also gonna add a concealer to my under eyes. Doing that is one of my favorite ways to brighten up under my eyes for any dark circles. Doing this really makes you look awake. As a friend of mine put it, it makes you look like you got an extra 3 hours of sleep. So for this, I use the white concealer. Just a little bit. A little really does go a long way. Kind of rub underneath. You want to kind of brighten up the whole under eye. So doing a downward triangular motion really helps, and then I like to put it all over my eyelid. So I use color correcting tinted moisturizer in light, and when I'm covering up redness like this, there's multiple ways that you can apply tinted moisturizer, but in this scenario specifically, I always use a beauty blender, a damp beauty blender. That's very important. If it's not damp, it will not blend out the way that it's supposed to. I oftentimes will use like a kabuki brush like this to stipple it all over my face, but when I'm covering over concealer, I've noticed that the beauty blender is just a little bit gentler than a brush. A beauty blender won't smudge the concealer that you've put down, so that's specifically why I like to use a beauty blender. So I'm gonna let it set for just a second, and then I'm gonna set it with powder. Our powders come in tubes like these. This one is the Silver Rose. We have 3 powders, the Silver Rose, Bronze Dust, and Natural. For both the Bronze Dust and the Natural, I chose to put them into these tubs. That's just a personal preference thing for me. My Natural powder, I'm gonna go ahead and dump a little bit, I just usually do this, into the lid. And then I take a fluffy brush to apply the powder over my tinted moisturizer. I've let this set for like probably 3 or 4 minutes, and it doesn't feel wet or moist anymore. I always say that the powders are one of our best purchases that you can buy. They're $50 each, but I have never had to replace any of them so far. I've been with Senegence for over 2 years now. I really concentrate on forehead, and then I always get like under eyes because it kind of helps like fill in the crepiness under the eyes. And I get nose, and then I try to get like chin, and I do a light dusting everywhere, but I really concentrate in that T-zone. So the cool thing about our powders, specifically this Natural powder, is it's going to continue absorbing oils and excess sweat throughout the day, not just right when you put it on. Contour can be like a scary word to some people because they don't understand how to do it, but I do it in kind of like a basic way that would work for pretty much anybody. So I'm going to show you the technique that I use for that. I always grab an angled contour brush. This one is called the Large Angled Contour Brush. This is by Sigma, and it's the F40. So if you're like really not knowing what to do, this is a really good brush for contouring. The Bronze Dust particularly is incredibly concentrated. So I'm putting just like a little bit on my brush. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make the 3 shape. And this is kind of contouring 101, but the 3 is like this. And I'll show you. I always start with the cheek. What you're gonna wanna do is make a fish face. And then that natural line that appears there, you kind of extend that to your ear, but you don't wanna go in much farther than the outer line of your eyebrow. And this is one reason I really like this brush. I can make like a pretty precise line right there. Okay, and that'll be the bottom of the 3. I'll connect the top. So I like to get the outside of my forehead. If you are someone who has like a really small forehead, you wouldn't necessarily want to do this. Mine's not huge, but I do like the warmth. So that's the top of the 3, and then you'll see me connect the middle. And then I also like to get the jawline. This helps with the double chin. And then for this part, you can either get a smaller brush or pinch the same brush you've been using, but up and down the sides of your nose. Makes a big difference. I haven't blended out the contouring yet, but I do have it on both sides of my face. And I'm gonna go ahead and put on the Silver Rose powder that I told you about. It's called Silver Rose because it actually has a silver dust in it. It's very like mild though, and just gives you a glow. It's not gaudy at all. So what you do is you kind of hit the bottom here. Okay, so there's enough powder in the brush to give me a little color in my cheeks here. You can see the difference of one cheek done and one cheek not. And I like to use this to just kind of subtly blend out that contour. I also like to do it after the blush because I feel like it can blend the blush too. Like if you ended up with too harsh of a line over here, it's blending everything all at once, and I think it looks nice. And if you feel like your face is a lot tanner than your neck, which happens to me because I am a pale girl, you can add a little bit of bronzer to your neck as well. The Pearlizer is a highlight, and you put it on all the high points of your face. So I always like to show my bottle because it makes a good point, we'll just say that. Pearlizer comes in these foundation bottles, and mine looks like really beat up. And the only reason I'm showing you that is because I've had my bottle of Pearlizer pretty much since I started with this business. So over 2 years, and I still have some, and you can barely even tell there's any in there. But believe me, there is, and this is one of those products that's like such a good purchase because it will last you forever. And also we have an airless pump in our products, so you're getting every single drop of the product. I also apply this with my finger. It blends out really nicely. It looks like kind of a bronzy copper color, but it blends out to a sheer color. Places I always put it are up my nose right here. Actually focusing right here. This is one of my favorite places to put it. It gives the illusion of a bigger and plumper lip. You can do it across the top right here. I'm gonna blend it out. And also under your lips, and it really adds like a juicy lip effect. How much juicier my lips look. It's just totally an optical illusion, but it really makes a difference. This is how I do my base every time that I get full-on makeup ready. But if you start with a really beautiful finish, all of your makeup should look really nice. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions, feel free to send me a message, and I hope that this was helpful.